Tonight, Her Majesty's final journey. Thousands line the streets to see the Queen's coffin travel from Balmoral to Edinburgh. A grand affair at Government House as Victoria officially proclaims King Charles III. The King settles into his new role, duty calling him to return for tea at Buckingham Palace. Anthony Albanese forced to defend the public holiday as long-awaited surgeries are cancelled. Acquitted cop killer Jason Roberts free to go, despite being sentenced for a string of armed robberies. And the Pies president revs up fans to swarm Sydney.
This is Melbourne's 9 News with Peter Hitchener.
Good evening. With great affection, the people of Scotland have lined country roads and village streets as the Queen's coffin made its way from Balmoral Castle to Edinburgh. It's the first leg in a long journey before Queen Elizabeth is eventually laid to rest at Windsor Castle. Karianne Greenbank begins our coverage.
One last great journey through the gates of Balmoral Castle, a hearse carrying the Queen's coffin begins its 6-hour passage through the Scottish countryside, towns and villages. This was the home Queen Elizabeth loved so much, where she could lay her crown at the door and be herself. And that affection was returned by those who also call this home. Farmers in a guard of honour, their tractors lined in silent tribute, crowds 10 deep, in quiet contemplation of what has come to pass.
So it's been the one constant thing in the whole of our lives, the Queen. And she was a tiny little lady. I saw her once at an agricultural show in her Wellington boots with a scarf knotted under her chin, just getting on. Just feel very sad that she's no longer with us.
And everywhere, flowers and mementos and heartfelt emotion.
She loved Ballater, she loved Royal Deeside, and we loved her as well. So there was no question that we would not be here to see her all.
Elizabeth Alexander was born on the day of Queen Elizabeth's coronation in 1953.
It's just so sad, but privileged to be here and happy that we could say goodbye. And I think we'll miss seeing her going to church on Sundays. Yeah. It's all right.
Adele Phillips was a housekeeper to the Queen.
It was quite poignant, but I'm glad I was here to see it. I didn't know her in the way that the public do. I saw her in her little tweed skirt and headscarf and that kind of thing.
And two, soldiers who swore allegiance to her.
It was an absolute pleasure to serve Her Majesty. She was our boss, and we hold a lot of pride in that.
For many here, this was the moment the Queen's death became real. And as her coffin passed, it was a chance to give thanks for her life of service. In town after town, village after village, people stood waiting for that brief chance to be near their Queen for one last time. At almost every point of this 281-kilometre journey, and from every vantage point, people came, waited and gave thanks.
I kind of felt like she was the nation's gran. I had to come and pay my respects.
This part of the journey did have an end, Edinburgh, across the Queen's Ferry Bridge and into the city. And again, its streets lined at every turn, the enormous crowds bursting into spontaneous applause. This is the moment the crowds here on the Royal Mile have been waiting for, the Queen's coffin arriving here in Edinburgh on its way to the palace. Old and young from every walk of life, all united in this passing of history.
I think it's very symbolic for Scotland because obviously she's, loves Scotland, she loves Balmoral, she loves Edinburgh, so for her to pass in Scotland is a very touching moment for the Scottish people.
You've heard a lot of people saying she was like the nation's granny, and everyone can relate her death in their own family to her death now, and in a way it's emotional in that way, I think.
I just felt so sad. So sad.
She's been on the throne for a long time. So, yeah, it means a lot. Sorry.
And here, as elsewhere, flowers, cards and messages for the only monarch most had known.
Everybody was very respectful, and it's a massive privilege. She's a life, celebrating a life well lived. She was a good lady and we'll miss her. She'll be missed.
In that procession, a solemn Anne, the Princess Royal, a final undertaking of devotion, the burden of deep heartache etched on her face. The cortege finally entered the grounds of the Palace of Holyrood House, where the Queen had stayed only weeks earlier. Draped in the Royal Standard of Scotland, the Queen's coffin was carried into the palace, ahead of its next journey to St Giles Cathedral, where for 24 hours people will be able to file past and pay their respects. For a dutiful and loving daughter, it will no doubt mean so much. In Edinburgh, Kari-Anne Greenbank, 9 News.
King Charles III has been proclaimed Victoria's sovereign in a ceremony steeped in historic protocol at Government House. The occasion is said to be the most constitutionally significant occasion for our state, paving the way for all MPs to be re-sworn into Parliament. Stephanie Anderson was there.
In the Grand Ballroom at Government House, a ceremony steeped in protocol proclaims King Charles III as Victoria's new head of state.
By the death of our late sovereign, the Crown has solely and rightfully come to His Royal Highness, Prince Charles Philip Arthur George, God save the King.
The invitation-only affair was attended by a powerful audience, past premiers, MPs and the police chief, there to witness the pomp and ceremony that began with a welcome to country and this message from Auntie Joy.
I'm so glad that I'm here to be here with this change, and I do hope that there's a change for our people that will give us back self-determination.
In steps specifically spelled out in the state's constitution, Executive Council met before the proclamation was signed and allegiance sworn.
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III.
Victoria's version of this process different from other states, with extra protocols in place to ensure every MP can be re-sworn into Parliament from tomorrow.
That'll see us sit well into the evening, I think, and then the House will adjourn.
Today's formalities weren't open to the public, but from tomorrow this exhibition inside Government House will be. It showcases a number of items collected during Her Majesty's 11 visits to Victoria, including a tea set used in Warburton in 1954. It's another opportunity for Victorians to reflect on a monarch whose service is unmatched, her famous cipher still emblazoned in gold in the room where today her son officially became our sovereign.
I have no doubt that amidst the weight of these new responsibilities, His Majesty King Charles III will indeed, to borrow his own words, draw strength from the light of the example set by Queen Elizabeth II.
Stephanie Anderson, 9 News.
The new king is settling into his role, resuming official duties. As Charles Croucher reports, proclamation ceremonies have been held across the UK.
If the royal family was apprehensive about how King Charles would be received, they needn't have worried. The mere glimpse of His Majesty's Rolls-Royce crawling through London, enough to lift the spirits of a sombre crowd.
It's very emotional actually to see our new king, really exciting.
Duty had called him to Buckingham Palace for a meeting with the Secretary-General of the Commonwealth and tea with representatives from across the realm.
It's going to be a great era. We'll do our best.
Work, a welcome distraction for the grieving couple. The Queen Consort holding court with Australia's acting High Commissioner Lynette Wood.
I love it. I love the Australians. I love the way it says what they think.
The diplomat tasked with passing on the sentiments of a nation.
I was able to convey personally to their Majesties the condolences of the government and people of Australia. And His Majesty's warmth for our country was evident in our brief conversation this afternoon.
The Prime Minister will do the same when he lands on Friday ahead of the Queen's funeral in a week.
It will be a proud moment to represent Australia at these events.
Across the United Kingdom, the modern monarch is honoured in age-old ceremonial proclamations.
That the Prince Charles Philip Arthur George is now, by the death of our late sovereign Charles III.
Momentous change of title hailed in Scotland.
Prince 3 cheers for His Majesty the King.
And heralded in Northern Ireland.
God save the King.
God save the King.
While in Wales, centuries-old customs stand out as quaint and quirky. But this is all just a grand old way of wishing a sovereign good luck.
Bless His Majesty with long and happy years to reign over us.
His decades of practice may not make perfect, but they must count for something. In London, Charles Croucher, 9 News.
Europe correspondent Kari-Anne Greenbank is outside Holyrood House in Edinburgh. Now, Kari, the new king will arrive there in just a few hours.
She should also be celebrated for her 70 years of service.
Well, it will, Pete. King Charles and Queen Consort Camilla will be flying in here to Edinburgh in the coming hours, where they'll travel here to the palace. When inside the gates here, there'll be plenty of pomp and pageantry, including a traditional ceremony where the keys to the city are handed to the new king. From that point, King Charles and other members of the royal family will join the Queen's coffin as it proceeds down the Royal Mile to St Giles Cathedral. Pete?
Kari-Anne, thank you for that. And now to Damien Ryan at St Giles Cathedral in Edinburgh, where Her Majesty's coffin will lie at rest. Damien, large crowds are gathering there.
Yeah, Pete, she may be the British monarch, but to these people, she's certainly the Queen of Scots. Crowds have gathered outside this 13th century cathedral since dawn. Now, once the cortege arrives, there will be a service inside attended by the royal family to officially receive the coffin. Then later this evening, a first in this long goodbye. The people of Scotland will be able to pay their respects and file past the coffin, so you can expect large crowds here tonight and tomorrow whilst that happens. And then, of course, the final leg of this long, farewell tour basically for the Queen. She will head off to London tomorrow night before, of course, the funeral in a week's time. Pete?
OK, thank you. Damien Ryan there at St Giles Cathedral in Edinburgh. Cancer and surgery patients are having treatments moved so healthcare staff can mourn the Queen. The public holiday, which has the support of Victoria's Chamber of Commerce, is also putting business under the pump with little notice. State political reporter Mark Santomartino.
COVID cancelled Rebecca Walker's first specialist appointment for son Arlington to be checked for autism.
And then the Queen died and I thought, OK, it's a public holiday. Please don't close. I need this appointment. I need my son to get an answer.
Melbourne surgeon Eric Levi had 8 patients on his operating list that day.
All elective surgery and all elective clinics will be cancelled.
There may well be not a single spare slot on an operating list for months.
Hospitals, like all businesses, must pay staff more on public holidays. The Queen's death puts a day of mourning and grand final eve back-to-back next week, a cost the Chamber of Commerce says could be covered by surcharges.
Everybody wants to support it. The questions I'm getting for business are, how do we be part of it? Because we can't just be opening and wearing the increased costs of opening.
Some are undecided, but most of the shops along this strip here in Blackburn will keep their doors open for both public holidays and say paying higher wages is better than the alternative.
The reason we're staying open is because we can't afford to close. Since COVID's happened, it's been a real struggle.
It's usually pretty busy here, but yeah, we'll expect more customers.
But Blackburn Organic Fruit Hut is among those who will close.
Depends on customer. Lots of customers go holiday, so business running not really good.
Australia needs to and wants to give thanks to the contribution of Queen Elizabeth II as our head of state for 70 years.
It's a once-in-a-generation holiday. It's respectful, it's appropriate.
Mark Santomartino, 9 News.
Collingwood President Jeff Brown has declared the Magpies are in it to win it ahead of a road trip to Sydney to tackle the Swans. And with SCG tickets at a premium for Pies fans, the MCG will throw open its gates on Saturday. Tony Jones reports.
Of Collingwood's 15 Premiership Cups, this is Jeff Brown's favourite, 1953. It was the year the Magpie president was born, but that 53 Cup might soon be relegated to second favourite.
That's what we're here for. We're here to win the Premiership. Nothing less than that.
To get there, the Pies first need to overcome Sydney on Saturday, in Sydney. And although fans have been blindsided by airline price gouging, Brown is confident the Magpie Army can combat any resistance.
We've got a record membership of 100,000 for the first time ever in our history. This is what we're all about. We've got momentum, and momentum produces results, and that's what we're pushing for.
Collingwood has struck a deal with the MCC to allow fans stuck here to watch the game in the Olympic room or on the giant screens. Those Swannies are relishing the SCG squeeze.
Oh, it's bad luck, really. Our home ground, and I don't think they allowed many Freo fans last week. So
the Swans defeated Collingwood by 27 points when they last met, but there was no De Goey that day. He's back, and back in the good books.
Jordan's an integral part of our team, an integral part of our club, and I was just speaking to him at the cafe. He's feeling good, looking forward to the game.
De Goey isn't the first bad boy to pull on a Collingwood jumper. In 1991, Premiership stars Darren Mullane and Dennis Banks hijacked a bus in the city. They were also accused of assaulting the bus driver, Jamie Elliott.
They will be making no comment, please. You excuse us?
Making no comment.
No comment.
As Collingwood fans scramble to get to Sydney this weekend, those bus driving skills can finally be put to good use.
I even had a call from Dennis Banks this morning offering to drive people up in the bus if they're game enough to get on board.
Tony Jones, 9 News.
A great story, Tony, and now here he is with a look ahead to sport.
Good on you, Pete. Thanks for that. Well, how the Collingwood captain is lending an embattled Lion a helping hand. That story later. Also tonight, the big names step out at the Cattery, and it's not butterflies that Big Jez has had in his tummy.
I had a bit of a stomach bug, actually, so another day off, which was nice. Spent most of the day on the couch.
The dream is over for those Demons. We speak with the skipper as to where it all went wrong. Also tonight, Carlos climbs all the way to number 1. And we check in on Kane, who's making his way to Melbourne the hard way. It's an incredible thing that Kane's doing, and of course it's all for the kids, of course, who are doing it tough at the moment. Caroline Wilson will also be joining us live.
Good work. Thank you, Tony. And when we return, acquitted cop killer Jason Roberts has been sentenced for a string of armed robberies, but he won't spend another day behind bars. Plus, a ute driver fighting for life after an erratic motorist driver ploughed into him. And concerns raised over a Jetstar plane with tape on its wing.
9 News, brought to you by CMC Markets Invest, Canstar's online broker of the year, 12 years running. Think invest. CMC Markets Invest.
Acquitted police killer Jason Roberts will not spend another day in jail after being told he's spent enough time behind bars for an armed robbery spree across Melbourne. The judge found the 42-year-old showed genuine remorse for his violent crimes, so set him free. Court reporter Eliza Rugg.
Jason Roberts says he's struggling to cope with his newfound freedom and only leaves his house when absolutely necessary. Now he can stay home all he likes. Today, Roberts was sentenced to 6.5 years jail for 10 armed robberies, but formally spared any more prison time because he already spent 8,001 days locked up for the Moorabbin police murders before being acquitted. In the months before Bandali Debs murdered the 2 officers in 1998, the serial killer recruited Roberts, who was dating his daughter, Nicole Debs. Wearing masks, the 2 men raided retail stores and restaurants across Melbourne's southern and eastern suburbs, pointing guns at terrified workers and customers. Debs told one group of victims, "Tell the police, Lucifer was here," while Roberts tied up their hands and feet.
Do you regret what you did to those people, Jason?
The judge said Jason Roberts is now a very different man to the 17-year-old boy he was back in 1998, finding that without the toxic influence of Bandali Debs, Roberts would not have committed the robberies. There's no word yet if Roberts will sue Victoria Police over its handling or mishandling of the Silk Miller case.
Is this the last time we'll see you at court, Jason?
Eliza Rugg, 9 News.
Ukraine has made significant headway in its war with Russia after reclaiming the city of Kharkiv. Russian troops retreated after an attack on a power plant in the town. Ukraine's military says it's retaken more than 3,000 square kilometres, while Moscow insists the army is simply regrouping. The missile strikes on Kharkiv caused widespread blackouts across the city, which Ukrainian authorities believe was a revenge attack. Joe Biden has visited the Pentagon on the 21st anniversary of the September 11 attacks. The president laid a wreath and vowed to root out future terror plots while honouring the precious lives he says were stolen. The president said the day was not only about remembering those who died, but about renewal and resolve for a nation still hurting. An innocent driver is tonight fighting for life after being struck by a suspected speeding car on a busy freeway. Investigators believe the victim had got out of his car to secure his load when he was hit. Mimi Becker reports.
Smashed into a side barrier after spinning out of control. It's hard to fathom how the driver of this Toyota Yaris survived. Another road user, not as lucky.
It then appears that the driver of the ute who was outside trying to fix his load has been struck by the Toyota Yaris.
The ute driver in his 30s left to fight for his life after he was hit in the emergency lane on the Mornington Peninsula Freeway. Other drivers calling 000 in the lead up to the crash just before 8:30 this morning.
A number of witnesses have identified that the Toyota Yaris may well have been driving erratically for a period of time prior to the collision.
The northbound lanes were closed for hours as police investigated the crash, while the driver of the Yaris, a 50-year-old man from Cranbourne East, is now under police guard at the Alfred Hospital.
I think that obviously if speed is a factor, we just got to get people to drive, slow down, drive to the conditions and drive to their abilities.
While police have already spoken to multiple witnesses who say they saw the driver of the Yaris speeding, they are still keen to see any dashcam video of the crash or the moments leading up to it. Charges are expected to be laid. Mimi Becker, 9 News.
A Bali passenger has raised concerns after spotting what appeared to be gaffer tape on the wing of a Jetstar plane. But the airline says there's no safety risk as it was specialised high-speed tape used worldwide to stop paint peeling. It says it's preparing to repaint the aircraft's wings, with each plane taking up to 3 weeks to complete. Lavinia's along now. Quite chilly today, Lavinia.
It was, Pete. The mercury had a sluggish Monday. From a low of 8.6, the city peaked at 13.6. Southwesterly winds had a nasty bite as they were being dragged up from a long way south. There were a few lingering showers about, only light though, and they're easing now. This high pressure system will strengthen as it moves closer, so we can expect a bit of sunshine in the week ahead. However, in typical spring fashion, it has a 4 seasons in 1 week feel. Frosty mornings, rain, gusty winds and storms are all in the mix. But in good news, although today was cool, maximums for the week ahead are all much higher, Pete.
That'll be very welcome. Thank you, Lavinia. Next in 9 News, scooter thieves strike again. The suburban shop robbed for the second time in 2 weeks. Plus, a driver's dramatic arrest after leading police on a 3-hour chase. And a young Goulburn Valley girl's very special connection to the Queen. A would-be killer who shot a stranger in the head has been sentenced to 18 years for attempted murder and other offences. Philip Constantinou shot Kevin Passanis in March 2020 while he sat in his car at Narre Warren South.
The person who is Kevin at the moment is not my son. He's a different person.
The court heard Constantinou believed his girlfriend was having an affair with the victim. A Fairfield e-scooter store has been targeted by thieves for the second time in less than 2 weeks. The robbers managed to roll away with 4 scooters worth around $8,000. Elizabeth Moss with the story.
One by one, they rolled away. The scooter stealers making their getaway. Minutes later, one of the robbers returns, turning on the lights and taking a 4th scooter. Earlier this morning, donning hoods, gloves and a torch, the trio checked the coast was clear before picking the locks.
I'm very angry at this stage. I just can't fathom that anyone would continue to do this to a small business. My spirit is a little bit deflated.
Nikolaos Tutsida's store was hit less than 2 weeks ago by hammer-wielding thieves who stumbled their way out with 2 e-scooters.
Get a life, grow up, get a job.
The shop's only been here for about 2 months, and in that time, $15,000 worth of stock has been taken, with police investigating whether the two robberies are linked. In the meantime, the owner doesn't think the thieves will be getting anywhere anytime soon.
They didn't even have the keys in them, so good luck riding them. See how far you get.
Elizabeth Moss, 9 News.
A man allegedly armed with a knife has been charged over a 3-hour police pursuit overnight. 27-year-old Matthew Jeffrey is accused of leading officers on a chase from Melton to Dandenong, then back to the city. The unlicensed Fawkner man allegedly reached speeds of up to 180 kilometres an hour, forcing officers to use stop sticks twice to slow his vehicle. He's been charged with dangerous driving and breaching bail. A young girl from regional Victoria is among the lucky few to receive one of the Queen's final letters. 8-year-old Olivia Akers sent Her Majesty a letter and several photographs of herself dressed up as royalty astride her own pony. A note back arrived the very day Queen Elizabeth died.
I felt excited when I heard the news about the Queen that she died. I thought I wasn't going to get a letter, but I did.
The reply said the Queen was touched to hear that Olivia too enjoyed horse riding. In the news ahead, a 3-year-old boy narrowly avoids serious injury after an out-of-control car ploughed into his Glenmore bedroom. Plus, bombshell revelations about the mysterious disappearance of conwoman Melissa Caddick, and the Queen's beloved corgis find a new home.